It is customary at commencement ceremonies such as this to invite a distinguished guest to address our graduates. Today it is our honor and pleasure to have Dr. Peter Rhee delivering the commencement address. Peter Rhee is a professor of surgery at the University of Arizona and the chief of trauma, critical care, and emergency surgery at the University of Arizona Medical Center, University Campus. He retired as a captain in the U.S. Navy after 24 years of active duty. His last duty before retirement from the Navy was as the director of the Navy Trauma Training Center at Los Angeles County University of Southern California, where he trained the naval surgical teams who were deploying for duty. A fellow of the American College of Surgeons in Critical Care Medicine, Dr. Rhee also has a diploma in the medical care of catastrophes from the Apothecaries of London. Research interests include resuscitation, hemostasis, suspended animation, immunology, trauma training, and monitoring devices. He has more than 180 publications in referee journals and 18 book chapters. On the battlefield, Dr. Rhee was one of the first trauma surgeons to be deployed to Camp Rhino, Afghanistan, and recently started the first surgical unit in Ramaldi, Iraq. Dr. Rhee has set the bar for distinguished public service in the development of modern trauma care service and emergency critical care response, as evidenced through the emergency medical care he and his team provided to former U.S. Representatives Gabrielle Giffords and other trauma victims at USC. Please help me welcome Dr. Peter Rhee.
Well, graduating class of 2012, congratulations. We all know how much it took you to get yourselves here today. Next, to all the family and friends, congratulations. You all know how much it took you to get them here today. To all those who work at the great U of A, congratulations. We all know how much it took everyone to get everyone here today. To the distinguished dignitaries on stage, the Board of Regents, Provosts, Deans, countless numbers of people that make up the academic profession, you should be proud today, because today is a good day. Let's take a moment to reflect on what graduation represents and soak up the moment, as today is indeed a good day. President Sander, thank you for the invitation to be the commencement speaker. You seem to have a challenging but fun job during times of economic and budgetary cuts to education. You've been so ingenious in your solutions, including your choice of commencement speaker, that's a professor here at the U of A, as now you don't have to pay him a speaker's fee or pay for travel expenses. However, I'm going to insist my parking be validated, and I'd like a moderate raise, maybe a small one. If you can't do that, how about pulling some strings to get my son admitted here? He's graduating in 2 weeks. Writing a speech was difficult for me and my wife, Emily, as I felt really a lot of pressure to write something inspirational for everyone here, until I remembered that I don't have a clue as to who spoke at my commencement 29 years ago. What a relief. I'm sure that he was an impressive scientist or a famous actor or a politician or an anchor person, which is the combination of the last two. Wow, 29 years since my college graduation. I know what you're thinking, 29 years? Wow, that dude is so old. I'd rather you be saying, he can't be that old. But I do remember the commencement speaker from my medical school graduation. I went to the military medical academy called the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. I remember that commencement speaker because he was a great and famous actor. You probably heard of him. His name was Ronald Reagan. My graduation was at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., and we invited him as a commencement speaker so we didn't have to pay him because he was the president. In addition, he only lived 5 miles up the road in this big, large White House, so no travel expenses either. We did give him an honorary degree, and I remember what he said during my commencement. He said, well, when I went to college, I probably paid a little too much attention to the football and the girls, and not as much as I should have to the classes. My mother always said to me after graduation, Ronnie, if you'd only applied yourself a little more to your studies, you'd never know what you could accomplish. So for those of you graduating today, wish you'd done it a little bit more. You never know where you'll end up, because we don't know what we don't know. But the only thing I do know is that, and can predict in the future, is that it will be unpredictable. Speaking of travel expenses, President Sanders, this is the first topic of my 19-minute talk. Not traveling expenses, but traveling. There'll be 2 major messages I'd like to get across today. The first is traveling, and second is why today is such a good day. I've always loved traveling. It fascinated me. Maybe it was because flying on a plane was such a good experience back then when I was 5. I took my first airplane ride from Seoul, South Korea. We went through Asia and the Middle East and ended up in a small town called Tororo in Uganda. It was near the country of Kenya, and we moved there as my father worked for the Ugandan government as a general surgeon, and from what I understand, it was a Peace Corps type of thing. My father was a sweet, gentle, and kind man, and he was inspirational once I became an adult. When I got older, what I learned was how smart he was and how right he always was. Dang, I wish I'd listened to him more often when I had a chance. He died 10 years ago from brain cancer, but I ask you, how was I to know that he was smarter than my friends? Last week, when I was finishing up washing my car so my son could take it to the prom, I remember wondering if my son would one day realize that I'm at least as smart as some of his friends. I went away to college in Atlanta, Georgia, and got back home, and it seemed like he got smarter. I went away to college, and he got smarter. Go figure that. Every time I went away for school or training, he got smarter still. I went away to medical school, internship, fellowship, so on, and every time I came back, he got smarter. Now, was it that he got smarter, or was it that I just started listening to him? Not just hearing him, but listening to him. Anyways, back to Uganda. I had the best childhood memories of that time there. It couldn't have been any better. We played Robin Hood frequently, as Uganda was imperialized by the British back then, so I grew up under the British culture. Those toys we made out of sticks were the best. A spaghetti carton held the arrows that we made, and we made bows out of saplings of trees with a machete, and it was great because I was a kid running around with a machete. It was the tail end of the British Empire. Remember the British Empire? They said the sun never set on the British Empire. But the American Empire was taking over. It wasn't until the 20th century when the American Empire really started to take off, and we peaked at the end of the 1900s with a software .com industry boom. Mid-1900s were dominated by our military, but we really dominated the world culture through Hollywood and TV. But it was the invention of the computer and the internet that really wrote our history as the dominant empire of the turn of the century, and we dominated through culture and economics. We became global. Anyways, back to Uganda one last time. We're having a good old time when all the Asians there got thrown out of the country by his new president, Idi Amin, and this was a good day as it forced us into the next chapter of our lives. We hopped around a little bit through Europe, but eventually our family of 5 ended up in a small hotel room on Manhattan Island, and we were trying to go through the immigration process there so we could stay in the United States. My father chose the U.S. because of the opportunities to educate the kids here in the American Empire, not in the British Empire. Our family of 5 lived on 1 roasted chicken a day that we bought from the rotisserie that they had in the department store next to the hotel. We eventually got an apartment in the ghettos of Passaic, New Jersey, where my father had to redo his internship, moved to Youngstown, Ohio, where he repeated his residency, and then eventually got a job as a doctor in a small coal mining town in southwestern Pennsylvania called Uniontown. This is where I call home because I had graduated from high school there. In high school, I didn't get into as many fights as I used to because everybody kept getting bigger and I didn't. But my older brothers were always expelled from school, as they're constantly not taking any crap from all the idiots who'd never seen Asians before. I guess those that challenged my brothers didn't travel much. After high school, I asked my parents to drive me 12 hours to Atlanta, Georgia, so I could go to Georgia Tech, so I could become not a doctor. I wanted to do anything but be a doctor. You see, I'm Korean. There were 2 Asians in my entire town, me and this other Chinese girl. Everyone figured that we'd eventually get married. A lot of pressure to become married and be a doctor. I had to rebel, and so I moved far away and became some type of engineer, but somewhere along that career path, I went astray, and I ended up applying for, you guessed it, medical school. Eventually, I told my dad I got into medical school, and I'm sure he did a little dance of joy when he hung up the phone when no one was looking. I admired my father for always being able to accept my idiotic decisions when growing up, like when I used to say I want to be a marine biologist like Jacques Cousteau so I could work with the dolphins. He said okay to all these desires, making a long sigh, and tried desperately not to roll his eyes. I then decided I'd join the military for the usual reason that most of us do, which is that I needed the money to pay for medical school. I'm sure that my dad did another dance of joy when he found out he didn't have to pay for my medical school. During medical school, that's when my travel really started to escalate. I took every opportunity that came my way and did every out-of-town rotation I could. When I became a Navy doctor, I felt I made circles around the globe. I didn't know how to say no to any opportunity. It seemed as if I got everywhere and did many things, whether it was the humanitarian aid missions in East Timor, deployments out at sea during peacetime, deployments to wars during wartime with the Marines, or even a luxurious presidential tour of China as his trauma surgeon. I loved traveling. It was fun. I got good at it. I became a road warrior. I traveled light, always went far forward. I hated being in the rear with the gear. Traveling meant experiencing different cultures, the different beers, the wines, the people. It was pretty fabulous. And being in the Navy really was an adventure for me and not just a job. But today, I didn't have to travel much to get here, and that's another reason why it was a good day. Today just feels good. It feels right. So many here to celebrate. And I hope nothing ruins your day today. You deserve a complete, full day of a good day. Don't let the little things like being late for this or not having enough place to sit bother you, all right? Those are minor things. Once upon a time, when I was a battlefield surgeon in Ramadi, Iraq, I wrote a little piece in my journal, and it was called, "Today is a Good Day." Let me tell you a little bit about that day. December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. No surgical cases the night before, so I got to go to bed a little bit early, and I slept as long as I could. But, you know, Mother Nature calls. Otherwise, I would have stayed in my sleeping bag for as long as I could. Normally, you get up, you use an empty water bottle. But what I had to do, you couldn't do or shouldn't do in a water bottle. It was quite cold outside, and I laced up my boots, got my gear on, and, quickly, and went to the Porta-John. Clean, crisp air, felt good. It was cold, the flies weren't out yet, not active, and the smells were tolerable. But most of all, the Porta-John was freshly cleaned. Just hosed out. Awesome. First one in the morning, myself, no other one. My wife and a few other people asked me to take this part about the Porta-John out of my talk. And so, why are you talking so much about going to the bathroom? Well, because we didn't have bathrooms out there, we had Porta-Johns. Some deployments, we don't have Porta-Johns. In Afghanistan, when the war started, we were out there, no Porta-Johns, and I'm not going to go into the details of what we did and how we did it, but let me tell you, sometimes Porta-Johns are pretty good. Washing your hair, bathing in your body, using rationed bottled water for months sometimes makes you appreciate the little simple things in life. So that morning, when others started to wake up, I was being greeted by the troops, and every time they'd see me, they'd say, "Good morning, Captain, how are you doing today?" And I'd answer my usual stuff, which was, it couldn't get any better. It couldn't get any better. And today, with that clean Porta-John, I really meant it. Now, let me explain why I say it couldn't get any better. It seems like a sick answer, you know, someone who's at war, seeing all the horrific, nonsensical injuries that come in on a daily frequency. I also wasn't with my wife or kids, so why would I say it couldn't get any better? Well, to me at that time, that's how I felt. I chose the military for the money. The deal was pretty simple. They pay, and if there's a war, I pay. That was the deal, straightforward, simple. They paid for my training, now it's my turn to pay back as the country was at war. It's like a tank commander who had trained all his life and is about to retire without ever having to fire a shell out of his tank. You know, we could talk about whether that's good or bad philosophically over a few beers, about whether the tank commander never having to fire at an enemy during war is a good thing or bad. But I was kind of in that situation, you see. I was a military trauma surgeon, training everyone else how to do battlefield surgery. Now that there was a war, I was at the top of my game, physically, mentally, professionally, my rank, everything. You know, I was a trauma surgeon. It took me 15 years to training to become one. I had 10 years of experience, and now I was in a war zone. I wanted that opportunity to do what I was trained to do. Although it meant another period of separation from my family, another Christmas that I missed, it was what I wanted. I had no possessions to worry me, 2 pairs of pants, extra pair of boots, and so on. And all I had to do was concentrate on my job, a job that only a few could do. The troops needed me, the military needed me, the country needed me, and I wanted to serve when I was needed, and they needed trauma surgeons. I had to wear a gun all the time, but I didn't have to shoot anyone or worry about anything like that. Didn't care what they're fighting about. Didn't matter, wasn't in my control. All I had to do was help the torn flesh that they put before me. Kids, civilians, Army guys, Marine Corps guys, it didn't matter, you know. How great is that? You know, I work for a country that lets you take care of the enemy. I didn't have to question what was going on or why. And sometimes you need people like that, people who don't question but just does as ordered. So later that night on Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th, we had a mass casualty, kind of like the one we had in Tucson on January 8th, 2011, when 19 people got shot down on the corner of Ina and Oracle, about 9 miles from here. 6 people died that day. Except in Ramadi, the difference was we had 19 Marines that came in, but they were blown up before they were shot, and none of them had died yet that day. You get them to me alive, and you got a pretty good chance that you'll stay alive. We trauma surgeons may not be the smartest in the group. We make up for it by working hard and long, and we like the stressful conditions. We like making the tough choices that matter. The first 6 Marines that came to us had tourniquets on at the groin. 4 legs were already blown clean off, 2 of the Marines. And I'm not going to go into the details of the hell that ensued that day, but I've been told to warn you that I will open a small window of what did happen that day. We lost one of the 19 Marines that came to us. I do apologize to the family of that Marine. We should have done better. Mistakes were made, and we're sorry. Sorry for many things. We shared a loss, and we too felt it deeply. You see the evacuation helicopter flight to Baghdad. In the back of that Apache helicopter is really dark and black. And as we put that injured Marine into the back of that helicopter, his IV line got cut. He bled out his IV line, and that was enough to kill him. I didn't even have to amputate his legs because both of his legs were blown clean off. He was alive when the helicopter took off, and he should have been alive when it landed. Now, the nurse flying with that Marine told me what happened and told me how he died during transport. Her call name or nickname was Blue Light. We called her Blue Light because she loved blue light specials at Kmart. And she always carried a little blue light on her body armor. When I approached her, when she came back, she said, "Captain, wait, I got to go brush my teeth first." You see, she had to do mouth-to-mouth and CPR on that Marine that died, and that Marine vomited into her mouth as he died. 19 Marines came to us that night, and of the first 6 Marines, we only saved 1 leg, or 1 out of 12. 1 out of 12 isn't that great, but I guess it's better than 0 out of 12. Another way to look at it maybe is, you know, we only lost 11 out of the 38 legs that came to us. That day was a good day, in my opinion. So we got finished about 4:30 in the morning, and when I got out of the operating room with my last case, Most everyone else had already gone to sleep because all the other casualties got flown to Baghdad, and they were tired. So I got to the sergeant and said, get them all out of bed, put them in formation, I need to talk to them. Of course, they're all probably expecting to get chewed out. It seemed chaotic that day, and everything seemed to go wrong. I can get pretty demanding, and they all knew I wanted things perfect all the time. They were expecting a debrief of the night's events. They were assembled, and I did raise my voice. But I didn't chew them out. I thanked them for what they did and how they performed, and praised them for serving their country. I knew it was a pretty rough night for all those medics and nurses. Some of them were your age, even younger, and most of them didn't want to be there. I asked them to remember that night, and most of them will not know it for years what the real significance was. What I said to them is that you had a chance to serve tonight, and together we all served well. You see, in military medicine, there is no better honor or privilege than to serve those who serve in battle. That's why today was a good day. A silver lining if you look for it. So today is a good day. I know that when you look or listen, you'll hear about things around the world which are pretty negative. The wars, the hungers, the pains, the war on drugs, global warming, border issues, the inequities, failing economies, the loss of jobs, budget cuts, education and health care. There are 40 to 50 million Americans with no health insurance. The jobs are tough to get, and so on and so on. Seemingly the world is imploding today or tomorrow. According to the news, it's only going to get worse. If you listen to the politicians, you'll hear nothing about something good, but all about everything bad. So I'll say to you, what do you see? Look around you. In an airplane, when all the gauges tell you that you're falling out of the sky and you're going to hit the ground, the first thing that you learn is look out the cockpit and see if the instrumentation is right or wrong. Life is good. When I look around, life is good, and it's getting better. I see educated people graduating. I see people who will make the world better, not worse. Education is responsible for our progress in civilization. Look at the unbelievable accomplishments made in the last 3 decades alone. Did you know that when I went to college, we did not have computer screens? We used IBM punch cards. I know that you have no idea what punch cards are, but they're redonkulous things. Today, we move 10 feet, and based on the change of detected speed of light from 3 satellites in the air, your phone will tell you where you are and where the nearest restaurant or club is. Based on the zeros and ones flowing through the air, the picture you took will be sent to your friend, and by the sequence of those zeros and ones, the billions of zeros and ones, your friend's phone, when he detects the exact sequence of those zeros and ones, traveling through the air, the building, your body, okay, their notification ringtone will go off, and your friend's camera will get that picture and not your mother. Today, we can take a heart, liver from a dead person and give it to a dying person so they can live longer. We can shoot lasers into your eyes so you don't have to wear glasses. We have cured diseases. We can do many things today that we could not even imagine when I graduated from college. Yes, today is a good day. When everyone is convinced that our world is spiraling downhill towards the impending implosion, look outside the cockpit and see for yourself. I say they are wrong. It looks great outside. It's sunny. There are 5,000 smarter people here today, and over 10,000 friends and family that will attest to you today is a good day. So back to traveling. Believe it or not, I'm finally getting sick of traveling. And it's because I see the world and the rest of the country. I see that the best place for me is here with my wife and kids in Tucson, in Arizona, in the United States of America. I have traveled, and I know what it's like out there, and I know it's the best here. But I think this is only because I have traveled, and I know that you need to do the same. Say yes to all the opportunities in front of you. Travel and experience the world. Don't take my word for it. And one day you too will realize for yourself how good it is, right here, right now, and that's why today is such a good day. If you see me in the future, stop and let's chat. But speaking as a professional trauma surgeon, I hope I will never, ever see you again. Seriously, good luck, farewell, and farewell wherever you may fare. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.